feels like we do need.
It's like diverging, and I think we have so many different angles that we could take that we just need to decide. And I think, whoa, what was that?
A construction
just a
happening in Mo's house in the background. That's yeah. Okay, let me do a quick intro real quick. Bitcoin Core app call number 99. I don't know. I guess to everyone, special shout out to everyone who's watched all the calls since number one. Like, you're truly special. You're amazing. To everyone else, like, get it together. I guess in terms of call notes here, I shared the document again. What do we want to talk about? Basically, receive and send screen and what's going on the dev side, maybe, or anything else.
I have just one question about testing on mobile, but that can be completely. It can also even be offline.
Okay. Yeah, we can also just talk about it right now, if it's
no.
Not,
Let's start with the meaty stuff. Let's start with the meaty stuff.
Okay. What would you like to talk about? What is the meaty stuff?
Receive screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I want to mention what you were mentioning. I also feel like I have this need. Let's just decide on layout and just fucking implement it everywhere.
Decide. Because it feels like
no, but on the other hand, I think with each iteration it is a bit better, or like we take into account more stuff. So there is some worth in this iterating or bike shedding or however you want to call it. But
yeah, I think picking up on Michael's, what is it, divergence and convergence type of thing. We laid out all this stuff on the table. We have 1 million sketches. Maybe we can just pick like 3 of them and then just vote on them or something like that, and take. That's a common thing, right? You pick maybe 3 directions or 2 or maybe 4, like whatever you feel like, oh, these are very good, strong individual directions we can take. And then you flesh them out a step further. And then you can really feel them out, where every problem pretty much has to be resolved in almost, basically, right? So it's not like we pick a direction and then we try to flesh it out and we're like, oh, it doesn't work because we've got this thing. And then that will make it easier then you can really feel it out. And we could prototype them and all this stuff too.
So maybe because Michael did this consolidation of 2 or 3 layouts, and there's also Christoph, your new layout. So maybe we can at least narrow them down to 2, and then I don't know, vote or decide. Or
so what are those right now? So we had the beginning, we had very basic form screen. Like the initial concept was basic form screen, then payment request screen. All right, that was the basic idea.
Would it be possible to put them next to each other, just on some files, that we have them as a visual next to each other? Because I feel like on the other calls, we would pivot to Michael's and then we pivot to the other design. And then I think it's nicer if they're next to each other.
Yeah, I would do that as homework, basically. Create a new file and lay them all out or so. Right now, I was just going to try to figure out if off our heads we can narrow down on the 3.
Michael basically did it here. That's basically this.
I did it, but Christoph's new approach is here, so it still needs some consolidation. But basically, that's what I did. Right, we had this original one, and then this, the same thing, but a little bit different. The same thing, same but different. Then we have this boxy version, which is, why is this the send screen? And now we have this, let's say 30. It's basically 3 different types, or categories or patterns, and I think this latest one from Christoph is the one that is conceptually the most different from the others. The others are basically versions of the same. They're differently styled, but this one is a different pattern. So maybe it's a good idea to basically take the original version, this guy here, where we have separate payment request screens and payment form screens, and then this one, which I really like, by the way. I think it could work very well, and just try to make those two work. I'm not sure if so I'd probably, from my point of view, I'd probably discard this type of boxiness.
I would like to differentiate it here also. So if it's just the input field has like a background or not a background, I don't consider that a different concept. That's like that's an input field style, right? That's like a detail, and like you could pick this one on the left and put backgrounds around the input fields, right? That would also work instead of those dividing lines. So I wouldn't, for that one, I feel like it's secondary. I think the when we talk about concepts or directions, I think it's the bigger stuff. And then you have these sub decisions that we in there that we have to make.
Michael, sorry, could you put the two right next to each other, in which you said, in your opinion, are the most differing designs? I just need to see them visually.
Yeah, so it's basically I try to say the same thing that Christoph said in a more eloquent way. So basically, we have these two different concepts, right? We have one where the form is on the same screen as the request or as the resulting request, and then we have one version where there are two different screens. So I think those are the main differences.
In the Christoph version, there's no payment request list, right? So if you create a payment request and then it's paid, you just see it as a transaction, and there's no payment request history or anything like that.
So I think with either approach, I would try to intelligently place this activity in the activity list. So if, let's say, you create an address, it says address generated, right? If you add information to the payment request, just show the text in there, right? And if we go with the original thing with multiple screens, you just do the same thing, right? You capture this information, you put that in the activity list as an item. If a transaction's come in, if you're like fulfilled, then you just show the transaction. You don't show the payment request anymore. So I think you can make this activity list entry happen either way.
Yeah.
And then that way you don't need to have like you don't really need a separate address list and a payment request list and a transaction list, right? It's almost like, you can have them, and we might have them, but there's also just this combo. All you need is activity, right? It's all in there.
No, I think this is better.
Yeah. I don't know if it's really going to work. And I think if they have like old wallets where they just smack 1,000 addresses in there, so it's going to look like crap. But yeah, I mean, you can make everything look like crap in your tool. You can, in your messages,
if we
send 1,000 emojis.
If we allow some if we allow for filtering, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Below, I pasted the version where when the QR code is next to address, so the layout is centered in other screens. Something like this will work.
Okay, so we basically have two directions, and in there we have I guess we have the approach to the activity screen, which is standalone, which I think will happen either way, right? That's a separate project.
Yeah.
Then, and the decision, it sounds like we're not getting rid of payment requests. There's no version of this where we do not have like a message name, right? Amount. We will always have that. I think that's something that Harold basically asked for. Get rid of payment requests, just address. Okay. And then in here we have two styles. And within these styles, we have decisions, like something Jakob pointed out, like placement of the QR code, or probably some other stuff, right? And then the one on the right, we have input field styles and other explorations we've done. Okay.
I think I prefer now the new version.
Okay. Why?
It's just, at first I didn't like it that much, but I think the QR code on the side was the thing that turned me off the most. So when I kind of fixed that, it's better. And it just, I don't know, the inputs seem very clear easy to read, and probably somehow more readable than on the, I mean, this is the input stuff. So maybe that's secondary, but yeah, but the thing that you can edit on the same screen and it updates quickly, but you still see those recommended inputs, recommended fields, so message note to self. That feels very easy, and yeah, if you create a payment, just if you're creating a payment request and then you see payment request in a different layout and then you want to edit it and it's also a different edit layout a bit, that feels more complicated, right? And like as an experience, more complicated, and also probably for development, more complicated. So yeah, it seems like the new approach is simpler in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned on Discord. I also have the feeling that it's more lightweight, but it's not as guided as the first one, so it's not as linear. But then it's more like you can tweak the things. You can tweak your invoice or whatever you want to do. And when you're ready, you just hit create, and that's that. You get the address. So it's kind of, yeah, it's more of a configuration than a linear process, which I think what I liked most about it was that you have these placeholder things for the QR code and for the address which means you have to deliberately click on something to, you still have this two-step process mentally, but it's not split across two screens. So you still have to, this little bit of distinction and yeah.
I would actually hide those, I think. I can share my screen for a second. I did this quick prototype. Wait, it's in send, I guess.
We should gather all of our received screen mockups at some point and make a huge grid.
Oh my, where did I put it? I cannot find it. But no, it was receive. Sorry, it was receive. Oh my god. Lately, I was doing user tests and just sending people prototype link, and for like 2 people they couldn't open. For one, the prototype was just loading all the time, and for the second, like the browser couldn't open it.
Are we doing tests now, prototyping tests on the send and receive screens already?
No. Okay, I'll find it for now.
But just to describe it, what Jakob did, Michael, you had this design where the QR code is next to the address, and basically that was hidden, and it just kind of rolls down, and so you don't see it by default. You press generate address, and it's like whoa, and it appears. So instead of telling you like what's missing, it's more like it's simpler at the beginning, and then it kind of rolls down. So. I mean, that's a sub decision. I'm just going to write this down as a sub decision here. Use placeholders. So use placeholders or make address appear on click. So I feel like something that could help us resolve that is if we, like that's what I tried to do with mocking up the send screen. So the send screen has a ton of complexity. And if you watch the video that I shared, it's like, oh, this gets quite intricate there. Let's pull it up real quick. Let's see, send. All right, if I enable multiple recipients and I have a custom fee, and let's say imagine you also have coin selection in there as well, and you also have multi-sig approval stuff. Then you're like, whoa, that's a lot of stuff here, and there are a lot of little icons that I can click to do different things. So if let's say we find that scrolling things down here works beautifully, then we should also use it on the receive screen, right? If we feel like the placeholder approach works better across screens, then we could use that one.
Yeah, I feel like this works really good. The only thing that we talked with Christoph, these buttons on the left side next to address feel a bit. It's just not a common pattern, but I'm not sure if this is that.
Yeah, I thought about icons first. That was my first thing because we have that in a lot of places too. But then I thought, why not? Maybe it can be more explicit. I just wanted to try it, right?
And text is better than just icon, right? Probably because the meaning is just straight. I can show you the prototype quickly. Yeah. So do you see it?
Yep.
Yeah. So just at the beginning, it's just empty, and then if you create, it appears below.
Yeah,
so I think
nice
it's kind of
I quite like that.
Interaction.
That's nice.
I like that.
So one of my thoughts about the QR code was actually that it's almost like, typically you're not going to use it on desktop. So I was thinking about even making it smaller, just 100 pixel or so, and thinking that, well, if a user wants it, they can click it and it gets really big, like so big that any phone can easily scan it, even if like someone's standing behind you a meter away, right? So it's more like, yeah, it's there, but it's not meant to be scanned right there, but it's easily accessible if you need it. In that case, it would be more like even a much smaller. So that could be another approach where this form is actually centered and it just kind of hangs there, and you get a modal or so if you really want it. I was also thinking about the same with the address, that there's a way to make the address like super big, right? If you just want to double check it with. I don't know. There's some, I think Kraken or some other exchanges have this where you can pull it up, and then each letter is in a little box, and there's a number below each letter of the address, where it's like, oh, I'm at address character 17, and like it's really big. Those are just
How would the QR code approach work on mobile? Because then if it's this little one, I like this idea of Christoph, because if it's little and then you click on it, it becomes larger, because the desktop is not really going to be, a use case. But the use case, I think, for the QR code is going to be mostly mobile. Like two people standing next to each other, and then,
Yeah, I don't know why the it's not adjusting the layout, but this was the idea that on mobile. So in another browser in Chrome, I think this would work. Like it would still be there, placeholder, you create it, and then you just scan it right there. It's a different placement for mobile.
That looks great. That's very applicable for mobile. Yeah.
For the send screen, I was also thinking about when, but specifically for batch transactions, I was thinking about whether because as you said, the screen is getting pretty crowded, and I was thinking about whether to leave the fee part until you're actually ready to go to sign or to create a transaction, right? Because you're kind of in the mode I'm creating like 5, 6, 7 transactions, and only after that I really need to worry about the fees. I guess.
That's what Jakob mentioned something along that too, and I mentioned it in video. Like, what happens when you press review? Is it if we already show everything here and it's pretty straightforward? Like, why show you the same information again, but just in a way that you can't edit it? Right? Do we show you a condensed summary of it? Do we show it to you in another form? Is it actually helpful, or is it just make things more complicated? Of course, when you have multisig or you want to download a PSPT or something, right? Then you need something else. But yeah, that could one option could be that you only see the total and the total fee once you actually go to review. But then again, if we have the room here and it's not too complicated, why put it in the review? So I don't know. I'm not really sold on that one. I just feel like the send screen is the more delicate one because it has all this complexity.
Yeah, agree.
Would it feel reasonable to, since the send one has the more complexity and the receive one is further along, would it be fair to say like we could literally make a decision on the call about the receive screen and then like just take that one off the table, or is it?
So the point that I'm trying to make a little bit here is that solving the send screen because it has more complexity may point us towards UI patterns that then we also need to use for receive, so it's familiar and consistent. So solving the more complex problem solves the easier problem for you automatically.
All right.
And Johnny is listening to the here, and it's like, damn guys, I'm already implementing this.
No, it's
Sorry,
actually
Johnny.
not a problem.
Sorry.
Like functionally, none of this is all that too far off, right? So now it's where to lay everything out so it's clear and easy to read, which is that's the design aspect. So yeah, I'm actually not that worried, at least from implementation. But of course, it's getting it to look right is very complicated. So from my perspective, this is all just pure design, and functionally, all of the iterations look good functionally, meaning that like there's not a huge variation in how to implement them. It's more about the layout and flow of all of it. So yeah, I'm just listening.
So what are so for the batch sending is a big one in terms of use cases, especially for activists and high people. So, and also just you think in terms of foundations. Oh goodness. I'm just going to continue through. You think in terms of foundations, if they're paying out a few grantees at the same time, ideally it'll be amazing if foundations could also use, Bitcoin Core to send out grant payments. So I like the approach of each transaction being split up on all these different screens. So you have the overview, and then you can click through each one, only one main focus. And then at the end, it's kind of wrapped up. Okay, I'm good to go. And then,
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of this approach.
Yeah, I think this is. So I like this Christoph layout now, and I think this is. I mean, we can maybe, discuss if this fee change should be this kind of interaction, or if these buttons next to address should be there. But in general, this is great, and I think it's But I think it's good to have a review, especially if you do many transactions. Just psychologically, you want to review, especially if this is big amount. You want at least 2 buttons before you send money, I think. Like if you have just one button and kind of click it by accident, there's so some review is great, and I think it'd be good to have, if we show it separately on this screen, then maybe on review we can show all of them summarized. And then maybe I try to do this layout, but it's get tricky. I try to show, address, amount, and also note to self at the same time. And it gets tricky if you want to show everything. It gets easier if you don't show note to self. Yeah, I can show you what I come up with. It's not that polished, everything polished yet, but it's doable, right? So one approach to review is to show them in the same layout, but just a long list. The user needs to scroll and improve, but that's maybe not that's easy to do, but maybe not. I don't know if it's good for review. I was trying to approach this kind of, showing just how many Bitcoin goes to which address, some different layout, more like Recipe, about this not to self. But there's also, where is this? Oh, I had one more with like, wait, I sent it to Christoph. Something kind of Sparrow inspired, but also without labels. Maybe we can fit labels here. Yeah, so just somehow trying to show all of them on one screen would be useful, I think. We just need to find the best way to do this. And also maybe kind of try to find out if the note to self, how important it is to show it at the review. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier to understand than an address.
Yeah. I wanted to say, if you do a batch transaction, then you will probably will have a strong need to know the context of each of these transactions, right?
Yeah.
And you're more likely to label it probably than when you do a single transaction. I have the feeling.
So I'm also thinking in terms of the flow, because I'm looking at Jakob's designs. It's first going to be, so you've entered them in on the individual screens. Then you reach the screen variations that Jakob provided, where you can see all of the addresses and you see them all underneath each other. But then there's one more step, because there's fees involved as well. So it was just a fee bit that I was missing in terms of, then you review, okay, these are all the Bitcoin addresses. Then the next screen is going to be, this is the fee that I'm going to pay if I send all of these addresses. And then the final step is going to be approving that, right? So it's almost 4 steps.
So the batch transaction is probably the less common use case. For a regular one, I think you would pack all the information in one screen. You wouldn't split it up.
It's just a fee bit that's missing in the batch transaction flow, because it is indeed 4 steps.
But if you're not editing anything, then it just can say at the bottom, it's like fee will be this much, right?
Right, before final approval, yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you're reviewing, another option for batching is like you have a little checkbox next to each transaction. You're like, this is good, this is good, this is good. Yep. It doesn't do anything in the background, right? It's just like a UI thing. But then you're like, yes, I feel great. I have green checkboxes next to all my actions. Just to give the user like something to do, feel good about. Okay, so there are, but I was just, so there's more stuff to explore in this one. So coin selection, something to explore, review screen, something to explore, multi-sig, signing is something to explore. If I download a PSBD, want to re-upload it again, if maybe it's on the same screen, I don't know. And I guess if I do that, do I have a draft somewhere that I can pull up again that sticks around somewhere? I don't know. I guess that stuff is something for the future. If we have silent payments addresses that are pasted in and it derives addresses from there, if we
what about CoinJoin as well?
Errors, page join.
Would you imagine CoinJoin batch transactions? That's also another one.
Include fee and amount.
But Core does support this?
I don't know.
CoinJoins? I don't think so.
That's MVP 10. Yeah, we just MVP 10.
Trying to make life really hard. Yeah.
People, don't hold your head like that, please. It makes the people watching the call think that we're not having fun.
I'm taking notes. I had a couple of ideas, but
okay.
one thing about the send screen that I think we also need to, let me pull it up, need to consider is if and where is it, man? I have the same problem that the Jakub has. When I get a payment request with all these fields like your name or the name and the message, those things will not get included in the transaction data itself, right? It's just visible for me, and then when I send it, it's going to be gone, basically. And so we also need a state where, do I have it somewhere? Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, show the payment request. Pre-fill with payment request, where we can pre-fill the amount for sure, the address for sure.
So we have basically, we also need to display kind of these things that are relevant for me when in the moment that I send it, so that I know that it's from Cristiano and I don't want to be evicted. But what goes into the transaction is basically this part up here, right? So it's basically an additional piece of information that is just needed when I send it. And then the question is, apart from the raw transaction data, do we want to save, like internally in the application, these pieces of information as well for the user, kind of attach it somehow to the transaction, so that I, as a sender, I can pull that back up and get the context. I think that's also something that we need to consider.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's like not a payment request you created, but one that you received that you want to keep for future reference. I don't know I don't think the database has a way to differentiate that, but seems like we should support that. Right? Because you can tell from the transaction details, is this something you sent or something you received? Like, what side is your address on? And then you can interpret the related payment request accordingly, right? What address is it connected to? And then we should be able to differentiate in the UI without having any extra database information about whether it's one that you created or that you received. Yeah, and then the question is too, like, should you be able to edit the address here? Should you be able to edit the amount? Huh?
Something else that comes to mind as well is with receive and send, maybe just some consistency in the way fees are shown and chosen. You know, like we have the drop down here, and then, you know, having that consistent with both. But then there are two different use cases, because one, you're choosing which fee, and then the other one is, you know, what is the fee that I'm going to attach to this receive request. But I feel that there still needs to be consistency amongst both fees.
Yeah.
This is actually wrong. So this is like this. So I'm on the send screen, right? I imported a request, and it pre-fills everything. So and in that case, I'm not sure. I think I wouldn't I'm not sure whether to allow the editing, because you're basically destroying the entire request. You probably would need to clear the form or so, but that's I haven't thought it through to that. But I mean, you can either pay a request as is, maybe. No.
I mean, editing the address makes no sense, right? Then you're sending to someone else.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
the same thing. For the amount, you
Yeah.
could decide, well, I really want to send him one Satoshi less just to make him mad. See what Cristiano will do. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason for that, but the address
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
a good
just
one.
one thing that I think we haven't discussed yet. So I just wanted to bring it up.
I just added labels to this arrows layout, and I kind of like it. I don't know how it will look like with like 20. That would be long, right? But at least it feels like I understand what's happening even from the visuals. We could probably maybe add some labels like total here or something.
Yeah, you could condense the addresses probably even more and even make them smaller if
Yeah.
right, because the Bob payout, that's really for me the human readable information that I'm identifying with. Like I'm not comparing addresses here. Yeah. Maybe you don't even need an address. Like if you have a note, show the note. If you don't, show the address.
Yeah, I don't know how. In the end, it's the address who receives it, not the label, right? So in the end, I think you want to double check address, or at least some people you should.
Oh yeah, the question is just, is this the screen to double check addresses, right? Is this where you do that, or are you there for something else, for a quick like visual cut check?
Are there any, going back to what Christoph said, is that if we make more decisions on the send screen, we can apply those to the receive screen? Are there any decisions on the send screen that we're okay with right now and happy to give it like a green light? And then like the next call, we just focus on the next half of the ones that we can't make decisions on.
I mean, personally, I made up a lot of that stuff today. I would just sit on it a little bit longer and try to tinker with it and have Jakob and Michael's and your brains wrapped around it a little bit further.
Okay.
Maybe you like it now, but maybe tomorrow you'll be like, sucks. You know, and we need a third direction.
Okay. So right now what we have in terms of send are those sort of, it's the full screen and you can scroll through and view each separate transaction. That's kind of just what we have right now. This is...
Well, okay, so this, did you watch the video earlier?
I haven't seen it. I haven't been in the core channel.
Okay. So this is the functionality we have, right? We can type in stuff. This is just for a single transaction. I can edit things, right? And it nicely formats them, which is going to be a pain in the butt to do. Sorry, Johnny. Contacts, we don't have that yet. For the fee, I just wanted to experiment. Like, do we need a drop down? We just have 3 options. Can we just like have a simple toggle, right? Do we need like this? Can we simplify it somehow? So that's the basic stuff. That's all you need for a basic transaction. Then some type of review and send, which I haven't thought about either. That's what Michael and Jakob were thinking about. Then if you want to have a custom fee, you can enable that up here. And then you just type in your fee rate. Like I want to have a fee rate of 5,000. Whoop. And then, I have more control. But basically, previously, we always had custom fee within our dropdown of fee options. Now it's like a separate pro option. That's harder to find. Then replaced by fee, that needs to be really figured out. I just have a little toggle here, which is not a great solution. And then multiple recipients, when you turn it on, this header pagination shows up to allow you to switch between different recipients. And the fee section at the bottom, instead of showing just a regular fee, it changes to say total. So if I pay someone 50,000 sats, Robert, and then I pay 500 sats to Martha, at the bottom I see my total of 50,500 and the total fee for both of those combined transactions. So going to multiple recipients makes those two changes, like this pagination here to switch back and forth, add more, remove the current one, and then it changes this, it introduces this new total amount, and it changes the fee, it explicitly puts it under total fee. So you understand this is not just the fee for Martha, this is the total fee for the whole thing. And then there's coin selection missing, external signing, review screen, include fee and amount, send all, I guess, external signing, multi-sig, download, PSBT, and re-upload, draft if you want to have something, and then the showing the received payment request. So there's a ton of potential complexity in this thing. And then error messages like, oh, you didn't type in a proper address, or that amount is too low below the dust limit, or stuff. Right? That's the complexity about this one.
Or you pasted the same address into two transactions because you had it still in your clipboard, and so probably we should tell you about these kinds of things. Or something is missing in one of the 10 transactions, and so there's a lot of intricacy. Yeah.
So general feeling is that without exploring all those other states, it's hard to make a final decision around this one. Because
you may have run into situations where these UI patterns just don't hold up, or it get, and that's also where we can think about our regular experienced and pro user. Regular user, it's probably just going to be this for most of the top part, right? Then the more hobbyists are going to include race play fee, custom fees, maybe coin selection and stuff, and they'll be okay with that. And it can be more complex. And then the batch stuff. And then if you really enable everything, it's probably going to be a mess to screen. But that's okay, right? Because people chose to enable these things one by one. It's not like the first time they come here and it's like 5,000 options, but they made their way there by enabling and going that direction intentionally. So I don't know, for me, there's more stuff to sort through.
Yeah, I think both approaches work for this simple use case, and now we have to check whether they work for the more complex ones. That's it.
So we should choose like multi-sig transaction, like find one or two complicated flows, try to sketch them out. And we don't even need to finalize this, because since it's not MVP, but at least be certain that it will work later when we work on this, like polish it and want to implement this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be sure enough that it works. We don't have to specify out everything right now, but we have to be sure enough that it works.
Yeah. One thing that is missing here, I see now, is the subtract fee from amount, and you can set this per transaction.
Yeah, I try to capture all these missing things here in the docs when we have that. And this is a mess, this text up here, but this should be okay.
And then coin selection you also do per transaction, right? Per payment.
I actually don't know.
We need to find out.
Yeah. I mean, the most flexible thing would be to allow for this, because you may not want to mix coins from different sources to different destinations. But then again, if it adds too much complexity, then you just say, okay, do two separate transactions, right? Two simple transactions instead of one batch transactions. So that, and then it's getting easier as well. So this is also a decision that we can take.
That's actually an interesting question. Is it, if I'm batching stuff and I use separate coins I send to different addresses, can someone in the Explorer tell that both of these payments are still from me or not? And I guess based on how you split it up, do you save fees or do you not save fees? Like if I have two isolated transactions and I batch them, is that more efficient and putting them in the same transaction?
You pay one fee. You pay one fee.
Yeah, but let's say I have two payments. One is 50 kilobyte, the other kilobyte. Well, like a certain size and the other is a certain size. If I send them, broadcast them separately, is it more costly or is it more privacy preserving than if I batch them? Because then if like there's no benefit to the user to batch those, then maybe coin selection for the whole thing is for the whole batch is a better feature. Yeah, I don't know.
So it is
I'm
cheaper. Sorry, when Coinbase is sending, Coinbase is basically batching all withdrawals, I think, and they pay like a fee for one transaction, maybe a bit bigger. I don't know, even if they send 100 transactions, something. So definitely it's cheaper to batch.
Sorry, I was looking at the research document over here just very quickly because this is relevant for this discussion, and something that users liked over here. I was just looking at this page. What users like about the fees is being able to adjust the fees and consolidate fees. And what does fee consolidation look like? That part I'm not fully understanding. What does consolidating fees look like? Because you basically you have a transaction. And then you have the fee at the bottom. You can choose fast, slow, and so on. But what is consolidating fees? What is that?
I think it's probably just consolidating multiple UTXOs into one. So then when you send it, it's cheaper later. I think this is what it's not really consolidate fees, but consolidate UTXOs. I think
that's how the term consolidate is typically used. Yeah, and it is for cheaper fees.
What is it, Ahmed?
Okna Winkel, foyer, douche. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear me talking to my? Okay, sorry. I was just talking to my. He's like, okay. He's really frustrated with installing my shower. He's like, I need to go to the super shop again to get something else for your shower.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you need off, then and worry about that, then go for it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go off. I can better take them and instead of them walking. All right. I'm gonna go. All right. Bye bye.
Okay. Thanks, Mo.
See you later.
Okay, well, how about we just keep iterating on this stuff then? I guess the question is, do we want to iterate both directions that we have? I can also do web prototypes of both of them. I feel like it's a lot of copy pasting and a little bit of restyling. I don't think you're too crazy. Or do you want to just go for one and feel it out?
I personally, I think, I don't know, I have the feeling that this approach that you have in the background is probably the better one, if we can make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably focus my efforts in the next 2 days to see these more complicated flows here. And if I don't get anywhere, then I turn back maybe to the second one, to the original one, to see whether that makes more sense. But I had basically 2 ideas how this could work as well.
Okay, that makes sense. So we explored the other one. Let's dig into this one a bit, figure out if it works or not, and then we'll know our next steps.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm very curious about how this will all fit together, and if you can keep it simple. Okay. Yeah. And
how did the Sparrow guy did it all alone? Like it's like divine inspiration or something.
When did he start it? I'm curious if initially there was like this thing where he had a lot of where he did tons of iterations and figured things. If it changed a lot in the beginning, or if he just nailed it.
You probably just nailed it. Yeah, I mean, the multiple recipient one is still tricky because it has vertical tabs, so it also
Yeah.
probably UX wise breaks down after like number 5 or 6. But I mean, if you have so many transactions that you manually put in, if you do it programmatically, it's something different, right? Than if you do it manually through a UI. And if you want to do it through the UI, then you want to create, a batch transaction of 10 transactions, then there is some inherent complexity that you just will not get around. So I think that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's tame that complexity. Something else I was also thinking is that, let's say, the transaction number 1 that you're sending, that we have a bit of a special treatment there, where we could have a little insert in there that says, next step is going to be, you're going to review this again before you send it. Like, I don't know, it's just some informational stuff that tells people like, this is what's going to happen next, or cool, you just send it. It's going to, for the first use, that we're a little bit more explicit, that we insert a little bit of extra information in just the right places. Could be related to the address, which is a bit of a sensitive point. Maybe some advice for fees. I don't know. There's probably some opportunities there also. I'll just put that in there. First send tips. Okay, Johnny, what's up? What's going on with you?
Still picking out the request form. So the last week we had, so they're doing this new release. So that distracted us this last week. We had to do a bunch of reviews and testing. There were some bugs discovered in the core GUI, so that took up a lot of the time the last couple of days. But I'm chipping away at the request page using the iteration that's in the Figma. Yeah, no issues there at the moment.
Okay, awesome. Is the project board, is that stuff working out well still? Or
yeah, I think it's helping. Trying to get the other people going as well.
Is there anything?
G is back, and so is Pablo. So yeah, hopefully they can make some progress in their stuff, and then
summer break's over, huh? Should we
start contributing as well.
I think be cool if they also gave input on some of those prototypes and videos and stuff that we're putting together. It'd be great to get their input as well.
Yeah, I think hopefully they'll have more time soon. G, I think, will, and Pablo wants to. So he's just finishing up with the widgets GUI, some work there. And then he's going to come back and finish his proxy stuff and then start picking at the wallet stuff as well.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, hopefully, we get more from them as well.
Anything that needs reviewed right now?
There's a bunch of not design wise. I don't think at the moment. We have a bunch of like functional pieces, PRs, that we're working through right now. Loading wallets and finalizing the data directory picker.
I tried to test the PR with the wallet, create a wallet selector and creating a wallet, and I managed to get it done, to test it on desktop. But when I installed it on the phone, I got stuck on the
those
on the
components
Block
aren't
and I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. So there's no option to add a wallet anywhere. So on
Yeah, that's right.
the APK.
That
Okay.
that selector is completely different than the desktop one, so
Okay.
that's going to be handled separately.
Okay.
Because
So
the mobile wallet's that
I'm-
drawer at the bottom, where the desktop has sort of a pop-up